Now, you've been involved with this sort of farmer-first approach from the very start, going back 20 years. Why did you, as one of the organisers of this conference, feel it was so important to sort of bring everybody back together to discuss the various issues around it?
There have been a lot of changes in the meantime. There have been a lot of changes in the context of farming, and there have been a lot of changes in organisations, and there's been a lot of experience of what works and what doesn't work with farmer-first approaches.
Now, there's been a lot of discussion in the last plenary session that actually farmers themselves have changed very much, and that's a really key point to be considered in the discussions.
That is true. It's true for quite a lot of farmers, not true for all. But it is true that quite a high proportion of small farmers are more connected to the market and to information than they used to be. And quite a proportion of them in countries like Kenya belong to farmers' organisations which have got the potential for exercising political demand.
So when we're talking about Farmer First now, are we talking about the same group of farmers or a wider group of farmers? How has that definition changed?
The farmers have changed rather than the definition. I mean, if we say Farmer First or Farmers First, we're talking about small farmers in countries, non-OECD countries, let's put it like that, in the developing world. They are more or less the same people, but their circumstances have changed quite radically. There's also been quite a lot of urban migration, and there have been demographic changes. But it's very context-specific. It varies from place to place.
Now, there's already been a huge amount of discussion this afternoon, triggered by the paper that you gave this morning. And one of those things was that, there are still a huge amount of challenges, obviously, but also opportunities. What would you like to see coming out of this 2 days, 3 days of discussions? What are the key things that you would really like to see emerging?
One of the things I would particularly like would be changes in agricultural education. What we have at the moment is a pipeline which goes on churning out people who have got problems with their attitudes, behaviours, mindsets, their disciplinary specialisation. What I would like to see is a much greater recognition of the importance of people reflecting on themselves, being aware of their own mindsets, being aware of what they see, what they don't see, what they tend to privilege, what they tend to push to one side. If that was a quality in the agricultural scientists and extensionists of the future, and if it was a quality in the managers and administrators and policymakers who are responsible for agricultural policy, then I think we could have a major transformation in the next 20 years. But I don't think it's very likely. I'm sorry to say it, because I'm one of those half-full people. I'm an optimist. We've got some brilliant examples here, particularly from Makerere, where this has been done, and it's been a win-win situation in which the lecturers have gained and the students have gained and the agriculture in Uganda will gain. But to what extent that is something that can be spread remains to be seen. One of the things that we need to come to grips with is the fact that there can be changes in an organisation, it can become participatory, and then it can revert back to being very top-down, magnetised, as it were, from top to bottom. We need to understand much better how to counteract that, so that when there are gains, these gains are sustained.